Has Sony cancelled the a7S III? Has Sony removed capabilities from the alpha cameras? Did Sony go back to the design board when Canon announced the EOS R5? Let's get into it.
Delivering informative capability-based reviews and tutorials on camera gear, filming techniques, and content creation.
Hi, I'm Simon, and this is The Ordinary Filmmaker. If you're new here, subscribe to get notification of new videos like this one as they come out. And all the links to everything I talk about in this video, including gear discussed, are placed in the description down below. There's been a lot of talk about Sony giving up on the a7S III. Others are saying that new alpha cameras will be modest upgrades over previous bodies, while even others are considering switching to the Canon EOS R5 should it live up to all the hype. Such negativity, but is it warranted? These are real comments I receive from Sony customers. There's a feeling of neglect. Some are angry, while others feel like a kid whose Christmas got cancelled because his family came down with a case of the flu, while his friends are enjoying the new toys. Canon has dominated the news cycle with the EOS R5 since January. Does that mean that Sony won't show up with the a7S III? Or provide modest updates that fail to compete against this mythical Canon R5? No, of course not. Let's first tackle that Bloomberg article from mid-February that keeps making the rounds. I ignored it then, and I've continued to ignore it, but it won't go away. So what are the sources here? Several people familiar with the matter? As Soab Asadi from Sony Reconsidered said, this is something one says when the information being said isn't all that reliable. Are they factory workers? Are they engineers on the project? Or are they factory workers or execs at the DRAM company? I've been doing rumors for a very long time. I've learned that it's very important to convey the credibility of a rumor or the rumored sources without giving away your source. This information came several months prior to the planned announcement of the a7S III, before much of the world's manufacturing chain was disrupted. Now, once manufacturing has begun, even in limited quantities, it's very expensive to go back and do a redesign. This is a graphic showing how expensive it is to make changes late in the development cycle. Changes are usually done much early on in the design process. Doing so late in development is very, very costly and not undertaken without a very, very good reason. Since the Bloomberg article was published, parts have become constrained. Well, any part manufactured in Asia has become constrained. What would make sense is for Sony to prioritize the PlayStation over new alpha cameras, pushing dates and cutting back on supply, providing the PlayStation division with priority over the imaging division. Sony isn't going to pull back on any features due to part supply this late in development. If some features being tested aren't going well though, well, Sony can always remove them later on in software and then provide them in a firmware update, and they can do this right up to launch, right? But this is not what the story is talking about. Now, let's tackle the a7S III not coming to market at all. I've seen a lot of these comments, and they're not coming from trolls. There's this belief that it's not coming out. Now, the a7S II was released in October 2015. That's a really long wait. But it's plausible that Sony could decide to end the a7S, right? I'm not saying they are, but it's very plausible. Camera companies never announce the end of a line. They just slowly fade into the background. They stop talking about it. They stop releasing gear for it. But Sony hasn't stopped talking about it. Last August, Aoki Yusuke said that the a7S III is under development. No company that is planning to Deep Six a camera would come out and say the opposite. They would also know the plans for 6 months out at a minimum. No one at Yusuke's level would speak publicly about a product if it was about to be canned less than a year later. Now, Sony may have been tight-lipped on capabilities, but they purposefully told the market it's being developed, so it will be released. So what about capabilities? Will the a7S III be a modest upgrade? Many of you think that Sony has been relaxing, that the R5 announcement got them scrambling, that they're going back to the drawing board and pushing the a7S III to another year. Sony said they want to think in a different way and create something that goes beyond the expectations of their customers, and they got us excited. And why wouldn't we be excited? They said they wanted to exceed our expectations. They've been working on something amazing for 4 years now. Then, Canon announced the R5 with 8K uncropped video, 4K uncropped with 120 frames per second, and in-body image stabilization. I wonder if they wanted to walk back their narrative about expectations because Canon just raised market expectations even higher. But so what? Would the a7S III be a failure if it didn't have 8K? No. They could produce a low-light monster, give us a camera with 15 stops of dynamic range, give us global shutter, or any number of other features that could still exceed our expectations. They could. You bet they could. I may shoot Canon, but that's because my first camera was a Canon. It's very expensive to switch brands, and just because I shoot with a Canon doesn't mean I dislike Sony. I do like Sony. They make great cameras. I almost switched to them in 2018. You see, we all benefit from a strong marketplace. We won't know what the a7S III is capable of until it's announced. Very little is leaking. Very little of what has leaked is considered reliable. Companies are getting back to work. Supply chains are being repaired. 2020 is far from the year we expected it to be, but we still are in store for a great year for camera customers. Hang in there a few more months. We've received several Sony certifications for a full-frame camera, so an alpha announcement is within reach. The latest rumor did say June. I'd say within 2 months for sure, but will it be the a7S III? Will it be the a7 IV instead? Or will Sony decide to give us both of these? Let me know in the comment section down below. That's it for now. Links to everything I've talked about in this video, including gear, can be found in the description, including gear that I use to film this channel. In this episode of Behind the Scenes, I want to talk to you a little bit about getting gear. Since January, and if you remember back in January, I didn't have a lot of subscribers. I was just pushing the 1,000 mark, but things were starting to ramp up, and I knew to grow my channel, I needed access to gear. So I started calling around. I started looking for companies where I could get gear to review, something that was reciprocal. They would benefit, and so would I. Things are looking a little bit brighter again. Now, I've kind of restarted the process. I found another company that I'm working with. But the real big news is I'm trying to source my new equipment. I've said before that I'm really interested in the R5. Well, I've gone ahead and pulled the plug. So I'm talking with a company, a national chain, to get the R5, the 24-105, a pro-grade Cobalt 325 CF Express card, a UHS 2 card, and the EF to RF adapter as my first purchase. And my goal is to get it to be one of the first in the world to have the R5 so I can show you guys what it's like. I had a bit of a reality check. I realized that the R5 is a 5 series camera. It's more or less the successor to the 5D Mark IV. I'm ready for full frame. So for me, the choice is really between the R6 and the R5. And when I look at the capabilities that the R5 already announced, and it's going to be a bit more of a rugged camera, you know, I really like having, I've said this before, buttery smooth slow motion. And right now, I'm primarily outputting in 1080. But if I decide I want to start outputting in 4K very soon, well, now I'm back down to 60 frames per second. So that's the main reason I'm looking at the R6 over the R5. And I'll be honest with you, being a channel filming with the R5 does have a little bit of a buzz to it. It's a bit exciting. At least it will be for the first few weeks to few months. And it adds a bit of credibility. I'm not just using a 7-year-old 70D anymore. It shows you that I'm serious about this channel. I'm investing an awful lot of money. This is probably going to cost me somewhere around, I figure, and you probably already know already, $10,000 US or about $14,000, $15,000 Canadian. And that's a lot of money. Some of you might remember that this is going to replace my 70D for personal use as well. So it's doing double duty, and I think it's a really good camera, and I think the lenses that I've got planned out for on my roadmap, so the first lens is the 24-105 f4. The second lens is going to be the 15-35. I believe it's an f2 or it's an f2.8. I can't remember. I spent all of yesterday looking at lenses too, and that's what happens when you get a little old. You forget things. But after that, I'm not sure what I should get. Should I get myself a telephoto, a super telephoto lens? Perhaps. We'll just have to see. But for right now, the roadmap is the 24-105 and the 15-35. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of an update on what I'm planning for the channel and what it takes to do this. It's taken me 6 months so far to find a company that's going to be able to help me out and also be able to get me a camera quickly. I've been told I'm at the top of the list. Once I know more, when things are settled up, I'll let you know the company I'll be working with and how that might affect the things that I say online. So do I have an agreement? Do I have to push products and that kind of thing. And what I'm going to tell you now, even though I haven't seen anything that the company's provided me with, everything I do here is going to be honest. I'm an ordinary filmmaker. I'm an ordinary photographer. What really matters to me is the channels that I can watch that give me the honest truth, that are transparent. And that's what I'm trying to do every step of the way here. I've done that with how I make money off the channel. I've done that with my progress. And I'm doing that here with letting you know the type of gear I'm looking at and where I'm getting it from. And I recently made a change to how I make revenue as well. For the longest time, I didn't participate in affiliate programs. Well, as of, I guess, a couple of weeks ago, I started doing that. People are saying, why aren't you doing this? And I don't care if you guys click on the affiliate links at all. I want you guys to get the best deal you can. But if you are looking at buying camera gear, and if you're looking at getting it on Amazon, then go ahead and click on the links down below. That'll take you to Amazon. And even if you don't buy anything listed there, if you buy anything else while you're shopping at Amazon, I do get a little bit of a kick, and that helps support this channel. As I just mentioned, the R5 is not cheap at all. Thanks so much for watching The Ordinary Filmmaker. We'll see you again soon.
Thank you for watching The Ordinary Filmmaker. All equipment used and notes are placed in the description box, show more box, or down arrow thingy next to the title on the mobile app.